Today we're looking at my rescue section. Over here I put plants that are too ugly to be on display, but too alive to be thrown away. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. You most likely know me for my beautiful large plants that are thriving as close as possible to their full potential. But when growing so many plants, it is normal to also experience quite a lot of failure. At the end of the day, my approach to plant care is trial and error. So as part of that, there is quite a lot of error involved. I live in Sydney, and for most of the year we have fairly decent conditions, but we also experience winter. Of course, winter is mild if you compare it to an Arctic winter in Canada, for example, but winter in Sydney still has more than suboptimal conditions for these tropical plants. Specifically, there isn't enough sunlight, the temperatures can go down to 5 degrees at night, and it is super wet, and wet and cold is never a good combination. So naturally, I have quite a few plants that are suffering over the colder season, and well, I don't necessarily want to decorate my apartment with ugly plants, but upstairs I've got a little storage area where I kind of just dump all of my stuff, and there is one nice skylight. So I kind of utilize that section for all of my ugly plants as well. So I put them up there and let them fight for their survival. And I know you guys really enjoy when I show you my failures because it makes it kind of relatable, and I do want this channel to be relatable. Every single person who's grown a plant has also killed a plant before. That is just part of the hobby, and it doesn't necessarily make you a bad grower. That is just part of the game. So I really want to show you all of my ugliest plants and kind of explain to you what happened to these plants for them to end up there. So let's have a look. Alrighty, and here we are. I'm actually standing in the staircase. I'm kind of hovering, holding on for dear life on that railing over here, because it is really narrow over here. I can't actually stand up properly in this little attic over here, and it's really just a storage area. So I've got, you can probably see all of the mess over there. So anything that I don't know where to put goes there. Or any like spare furniture, spare shelves and so on, you know, I like to rearrange, and as part of that I change my furniture around quite frequently. So all of that kind of goes up here. I used to put a lot of these stuff in my garage, but now I don't have a garage anymore. I have like an open car park, so I can't just dump stuff there wild. But I have a nice skylight over here. It is east facing, but because it's a skylight, you kind of get nice bright indirect light throughout the whole day. Also, because this is the upper floor, and the hallway, as you might have seen when I walked up, is open, so there's no door whatsoever. When I heat the living room downstairs and hot air rises, this area actually gets really nice and warm in winter. Way too hot during summer, but during summer all of these plants would actually go outside or in the greenhouse for rehabilitation instead. So this is really just something I'm planning on doing over winter. Hopefully by the time summer comes around I don't have the need for a rescue section anymore, but for now this is where, yeah, all of kind of like my ugly plants go, or the plants I don't really know where to put them at the moment, or I don't have a good spot for them to actually grow nicely, or it's a project, or it's a duplication or something. So let's just have a look at all of them and I'll try and explain a little bit more. Can you guys see me over here? Actually, let me bring my light so we can see things better as well. Oh my god, look at the baby. Baby, you look even bigger with the wide angle lens. Ah, that's a bit better. Oh my god, you get to see all of my rubbish in the background. Oh, I hate that. Anyway, if I put you the other way, then you see the rubbish on the other side of the room. Should I do that? Which side of rubbish do we like better? I don't know. I really need to actually go through all of this because I move so frequently. In 2023 I moved twice, and then with every move, you know, some things fit, some things don't fit anymore, and so on. So I kind of just have a lot of stuff that used to have a purpose and used to have a place, but now doesn't anymore, specifically with this place as well, because I now have a housemate. We have double ups on some things, right? So she had a coffee machine, I had a coffee machine, she has a microwave, I have a microwave, and so on, right? Or, well, I have my spare couch here because the couch is too small for the two of us, so I bought a new one, and so on. So, yes, and sometimes you go up here too, don't you? You like it up here?
No.
Exactly. You have a spare bathroom up here too, no? Exactly. Alrighty. Now, let's maybe, I think we just go chronological, and it's actually quite warm here, and you can take my jacket off. What? Okay, the reader says it's only 18 degrees, but 80% humidity. It has been raining all day and all night, so it is actually quite humid today, huh? Very humid, which is good. I think my main concern over here is it being super dry because of the heated air from downstairs rising up. Hi, what are you doing, huh? Spankies? Let's just start chronologically. Alrighty, over here I've got a Hoya. I don't actually know what kind of Hoya it is. As you can see, I have never changed this water in this propagation jar, and it actually has roots. I should probably pot this up, but if you've watched my channel for longer than a minute and a half, you probably know how I feel about Hoyas. I don't really like them. It was a present, and obviously I didn't want to throw it away, so I just popped it in water and care about it, like zero. But maybe it would be a good one to put in my greenhouse once it warmed up a little bit. I think if I put it in there now, it would just be kind of instant death. Over here I've got a little propagation of Oblique. There are definitely some roots, and there is a little shoot up here. But Oblique has come out of tissue culture over here, and I bought a couple of them very inexpensively, and Tim from Grow Vertical also gave me another one. He also gave me this big runner that I put on a moss pole. There is one little growth point up here that is doing something. So I have quite a few Obliques, so I'm not... I have two thriving in my greenhouse, in my IKEA greenhouse at the moment, so I'm not really putting any specific effort into recovering this one. It just stays here, and hopefully it will do its thing. You know how I've got the mixed pot of Anthuriums, the crazy rubbish ones that I grew from seed, and I also made another hybrid between my Magnificum Forgetii hybrid and my Crystallinum hybrid. So it's like a Forgetii, Magnificum, Crystallinum, whatever, doesn't matter. I had that in my greenhouse, and I had it in like a corner, and my big Plaumannii was in front of it. So I kind of really forgot it existed, and I didn't water it in a long time. And as a result of that, it lost all of its leaves. I think it also has some sort of pest issues. Actually, I should really cut this. I brought scissors, didn't I? Let's cut this. I can't look at these ugly leaves anymore. But you can see there's lots of little stems in here. There's a stem here. I don't know if you can see this. Stem here, stem here, stem here, stem here. And none of them seem to have any rot or something like that. So I'm hoping, and you can see this one is starting to reshoot actually here, this little red thing. There. So I'm just keeping it here, and hopefully it recovers. It should really like this bright indirect light from the skylight above. And then, yeah, as I said, maybe in a month's time or so, when it warmed up a little bit, I'll put it back in the greenhouse and I'll try and do a better job this time around. But given it's already suffering and it's really cold out there at the moment, like last night it was 6 degrees, it would be pretty certain, I'm pretty certain it would die if I would have put it out there, or would have kept it out there. Hey, you're on fire today, aren't you? Come on, come on. Yes, yes, my baby, yes. Tummy rubs, tummy rubs. Alrighty, let's keep going over here. This one is the bottom part of my Adansonii pole, and you'll see a few bottom poles over here. Usually when I do a chop and extend, I give the bottom part of the pole to Timmy, but he also has quite a few plants by now, so he already has an Adansonii. And I also sometimes keep them for filming projects. Now, because I already have, oh, this root doesn't look healthy. Because I already have my big mother plant downstairs, I don't necessarily want this to take up even more space. And there are quite a few dead roots in here. That is not because of root rot of that particular plant. It is because these would be roots that belonged to the top part of the pole that I cut off. But not necessarily concerned. What I did do with this plant, I chopped in between a lot of nodes, and then I put it in my greenhouse. And I noticed that it is not doing well. See how every single stem kind of has rotted away? It is just too cold and wet out there. So definitely shouldn't have put it in my greenhouse. I thought it might be a good idea for it, and I can kind of hide it away. But turns out it was probably a terrible idea. So recently I changed it to living up here, and by recently I mean like last week. So I hope the parts that haven't already rotted too far can recover over here. I can definitely see some growth points, specifically on this second shoot over here. It seems to be much healthier, but that first shoot seems to have a lot of rot. So I'm gonna try and cut some of the rotted pieces off, but it's quite likely for it to spread further. So see how we go. But I'm gonna do my best. At least over here it will be much, yeah, this one is too late, I reckon. At least over here it will be much drier and warmer, so that in itself should give the plant a better time to recover from the rot. That third stem on over here also seems fine, seems solid, and I can also see some growth points here, 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 and so on. So everything looks fine. I think it was mainly that third stem over here that was a little challenged. As I said, a lot of these plants are duplicates as well, so I don't really I'm not mad if this plant isn't gonna recover, let's say, because I already have a big mother plant anyway. But obviously a little unfortunate, not like I do it on purpose, it's just I didn't put any effort in it and I just let it do its own thing, and sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. This is the bottom part of my Variegated, and I only chopped that last week, so nothing really much happening here. The stem is definitely healthy, I can't feel any rot and so on. I'm keeping the moss pole moist as well, and I can see some roots in the pot over here as well. So I hope this will just reshoot. My biggest concern over here is that, you know, I kind of set and forget this section sometimes, so I'm a little bit worried that I'm actually going to forget to water it, and or that spider mites are just going to find their way and absolutely annihilate this plant. This one is my Philodendron Bonifaciae. It was in my greenhouse, and one day when I walked in, it had all of its leaves just dropped. And again, that's a result of it being too wet and cold out there, causing fungal issues that just make all of the leaves drop. Now I cut the stem already and it looked healthy-ish, so I don't think this plant has had rot throughout, but I took it out of the greenhouse to remove it from this cold and wet environment. And hopefully over here it has the ability to reshoot, because I actually really like this plant and I don't have a second one of those. That was my one and only one. It was another one that was hidden by my big Plowmania in the greenhouse, and I forgot to take it out of the greenhouse to overwinter inside, which was dumb. I really wanted to keep this plant, but happens, right? All right, what have we got behind it? Yeah, no, you can probably see I can't stand up here. This is the bottom part of my Mandula, and it is growing really nicely up here, so it is definitely happy. The reason it's up here is because, well, the bottom part of the pole is so empty. I cut it in a lot of spots as part of my latest video that I made about it. And this one I popped up here straight away and not into the greenhouse first. So far, no rot, which is good. I'm just waiting for all of these little parts to reshoot. You can see some little reshoots on this part already. There's another one here. So I just want there to be like many plants growing up this pole and be nice and lush. And then I will, oh, I'm making a mess. And then I will give this to Timmy. Timmy doesn't have a Mandula yet. Oh, I can see a growth point activating over here. Can you see this there? There. So it is doing something. Yeah, and then I want to give it to Timmy, because Timmy doesn't have a mandula yet, and I think a mandula is such a rewarding, beautiful plant. But the way it looks right now is too ugly to give it away, right? I can't be like, here, I'm giving you this really ugly plant. Alrighty, over here, when I did chop and extend with my Variegated, I also planted a bunch of cuttings into this pot, trying to make like a trailing display. Now ignore the actual leaves. They're obviously all suffering. Oh, spider mites. Well, I can't even be asked to treat the leaves. I'll just cut them off. Bye! There's a growth point coming out here. There's a growth point 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 here. And I'm sure, yeah, there's one here as well. So, I mean, I didn't count, but I said here many, many times. So this seems to be doing really well over here, and it really gets this prime spot of bright indirect light. So I'm actually quite excited for that, but obviously it's a bit of a project, right? It's probably going to take like another 3-4 months until I actually see a few leaves on here. Like nice leaves. So it's just here doing its own thing. Again, my main concern is that I forget about it and it's dying. Alrighty, here we've got some propagation of Jerry Horn, this one. And these are all the Jerry Horns, and some El Salvadors. They have been in here for a long time as well. And I mean, yeah, they have decent roots. I can see some new shoots activating in here as well. So this is definitely something I will pot up in spring, and maybe I actually put some of them in my garden or in Tim's garden instead. But given that it's again cold and wet out there at the moment, I feel like there's no point in putting a cutting out into my garden now. It would certainly die. Alrighty, this is one of my variegated Adansonia. The one that always goes fully white, and as a result of that, there's absolutely nothing left. You can probably see the leftover stem over here that just completely shriveled up. So it was just going white, 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 and eventually just not really growing anymore at all. So what I did is I chopped between a couple of nodes. Obviously all of the pieces of stem that was mainly white with white leaves all died. So now I only have this little bit of stem left, but there is a new shoot coming out here and a new shoot coming out here. However, both shoots are on the white side of the stem. So I fear that this plant will be completely white again, but I actually bought a new one that seems to have a healthier amount of variegation that is growing downstairs at the moment and looking good. So no pressure on this one. Let's go with something a little more rewarding, or like a good news story, because this one is actually not really like recovering, let's say, because it's looking nice. This is a lush pot of magnificums that I also grew from seed. They weren't my seeds, they were a friend's seed. It's just a magnificum hybrid. I'm not too sure about the second parent. I think it's just actually a magnificum hybrid crossed with itself, but I don't know what was in the original hybrid. I just don't really have a place for it at the moment because it's winter. A lot of the plants from the greenhouse had to move inside. So I'm struggling with space downstairs a little bit, specifically with space for like a plant that grows lush and round. So I actually figured that the light exposure coming from above as part of this skylight is the best light exposure for this plant to grow into a nice display. And then once it grows into a nice display and is kind of even on all sides, or somewhat even on all sides, then I'll put it back downstairs. So I should probably turn it around and let this side face the skylight for now. So I'll do that. Behind that is a magnificum hybrid Anthurium. I also grew this from seed. I think it was one of the first or second one. What is this? Just moss. Good. It was, I think, the second or third Anthurium I ever grew from seed. It did not like winter out there. I thought, oh, maybe it can survive winter out there, but then within like the first month of winter I noticed this is not doing well. So I popped it up here, and since then you can see that there are some new shoots coming out from the pot in itself. So the roots don't look too healthy. I probably should repot this, give it a fresh set of medium so that it can recover properly. but I want to do a big spring repot and rehabilitation in about a month or so anyway. So I reckon it will just become part of that. And behind that, I love that I can do all of this just seated. This is a Hoffmanni, something like that. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if you guys can see anything. It was in my shower, kind of in the window, and the window is always open to make sure that it's not too humid in the bathroom. And I don't think it liked the cool draft. A lot of the leaves kind of dropped, as you can see, but it is now growing new leaves. So all of these leaves you can see now were growing up here. So I just cut off all the old leaves, and it also activated a lower node down here. So I reckon in spring I might actually chop it, propagate the top, let these reshoot and so on. But for now I just popped it up here so I don't have to look at the ugliness. And at the same time hopefully it can establish a few new leaves. I should probably move this in front of this bigger plant so it can actually get some light. Alright, let's continue with a not so sad story. I don't know if this plant fits in frame, but we've got my original Anthurium crystallinum. This is the mother and father to all of my crazy rubbish hybrids, and it is growing nicely. It grew this leaf during winter. Yep. And I can see that it's going to grow an inflow over here, and there's a new shoot over here. So it is happy. The problem I have with this plant, it is such a big spread. It has such a big spread. Like, look at this. I honestly don't know where to put this plant at the moment. It is a good candidate for my greenhouse where I can just have a little bit more space, but it's just not suitable conditions for it in the greenhouse at the moment. It used to be on my Anthurium shelf, but it basically took up a whole shelf eventually, and it kind of just didn't look nice. I hated looking at my shelf because of this plant. It pisses me off. So I just put it up here so it can at least grow, and then I can decide later on how I'm going to style this plant, how I'm going to manage this plant. I also think after winter I'll probably chop off all of these leaves that are getting a little ugly, and then hopefully there's some new growth. To be honest with this plant, I would rather have 2 leaves that are facing the same direction and look nice than having 7 leaves that are kind of all a little bit ugly. So I just wanted to start growing again, and then I can do something around styling. But it's not suffering as such, if that makes sense. Now these plants were all in my garden over the last few weeks, and as a result of that, they're all either dead or gone dormant. We will see. So these are all Alocasias. No, this one is one Anthurium. The rest is Alocasias. And yeah, let's just hope they're just dormant, because I like that idea better. That doesn't look like dormant, that looks like rot, huh? Anyway, let's see. Maybe there's some corms in there that can activate. I think I was just a little bit ambitious, thinking, you know what, I'll just leave them outside, they can go dormant, and then when spring hits I'm going to repot them and they will shoot. I think they're a little bit past dormancy and definitely into rotting territory. Well, I learned my lesson. I think next year I will not keep my Alocasias outside. The thing is, I have some Alocasias in my garden bed, and they were doing so well. Nah, this is bloody rot, hey. Yeah, they were doing so well that I was kind of like, yeah, like, I mean, the Alocasias in the garden bed are still growing and they still have leaves and everything. But I think the ones in the pot didn't do that well, clearly. So this is a variegated Alocasia. I have no idea what this one is anymore. Well, this one is a black velvet. This one actually still has the leaf, so happy days. But I just grouped it with the other ones, you know, so it's not so alone. I think one would be a silver dragon, one would be a dragon scale. I think this one is Scalprum, maybe. And this one is Alocasia radicans. You can still see the stem crawling along the surface over here. It doesn't feel... Oh, maybe it does. It feels okay. I can't feel rot. Let me snip it off a bit. Oh shit, no, that's rot. Yeah, I think it might have also had rot. Anyway, the plan is to just keep it here. It's a little drier, it's a little warmer, so hopefully this can all kind of dry out a little bit, and then hopefully it can either reshoot or some of the corms can activate or something. But yeah, I think this is a little bit too far from just give it a fresh medium. Or, I mean, a lot of people have suggested to me, grow your Alocasias in leca. And I might try that actually, or some sort of semi-hydro, maybe even just grow it in moss. But I have Alocasias, some Alocasias that I really like, got to live inside over winter, and they're actually thriving at the moment because I also provide them with some grow lights. And then in the same aeroid mix. So I don't think it's the substrate, I think it's the substrate in combination with them being outside, it being very wet and very cold. So to be honest, it's something that I kind of expected, you know what I mean? But I didn't necessarily feel strongly enough about it to actually do something about it, which now in hindsight I'm like, oh, why was I so lazy at the beginning of winter? Why didn't I just get on top of it? Why didn't I, you know, blah 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 blah. But in the moment I just didn't feel like it, and that's also okay, you know what I mean? This is not like you know, I'm not performing brain surgery over here where, you know, I'm a doctor, oh, and today I didn't feel like doing a good job at surgery. I'm just growing plants, you know, and if I don't feel strongly enough to put in a lot of effort to grow a plant nicely, then maybe it's not the plant for me to grow, right? Because I don't care about all plants equally, right? I definitely have my favorites, and I definitely have some where I work a little bit harder on making sure that they survive and grow to their full potential. And some of them I'm just like, you know what, I like you if you're low fuss, but if I need to put a lot of effort into making you grow, then I don't like you anymore. So I suppose that's the case with these Alocasias. If you grow, grow. And I'll like you, but if you're not growing, I'm not going to go out of my way to try and make you perform. So kind of a bit of survival of the fittest, which isn't a bad thing. I have the least amount of space available in this house that I've ever had. So, you know, and my house is already full. It's not like downstairs is empty because all of my plants are currently fighting for their survival over here. My garden is still overgrown despite some plants having gone dormant or dying over winter. My greenhouse is still quite lush despite the fact that I moved a lot of the plants inside, and a lot of the plants also died in there. And my office is packed. I'm actually looking forward to spring and summer where I can move some of these plants back outside and into my greenhouse so that the inside isn't so incredibly packed with plants. Sometimes I feel like more isn't better. Sometimes it's nicer to just have a few statement pieces and really let the eye be drawn to those statement pieces rather than just having shitloads, you know what I mean? Quality over quantity, but of course over winter it's a compromise between finding an aesthetic way of displaying all of the plants and just giving the plants an okay spot to actually survive. Anyway, last one and then we're done, aren't we? This one is not dead, this one is just dormant, and I actually induced dormancy because it was getting a bit ugly. This is my Discoria discolor, and it goes dormant every winter, and then in spring, so probably next month, early next month, I'll start potting that back up. There should be lots and lots of little potatoes in there. Yeah, okay, so you can see that. So they're basically all little yams over here, little potatoes, and they'll reshoot really, really quickly. They'll reshoot really, really quickly once we're going into spring, and then within a really short amount of time it grows like crazy, and it's one of the most beautiful plants, but it does go through this dormancy cycle every year. So after I chop it, I do absolutely nothing with this. I have not watered this in probably 4 months because, well, nothing is growing. And then yeah, next month I'll dig it out, I'll give it fresh soil with nice rich organic medium, not my normal chunky aeroid mix. And then once I repotted it, I'll start watering it again. I'll put it in a warm and bright spot, and then it should go absolutely crazy really, really quickly. But while it's dormant and looks like an ugly empty pot, I'll just pop it over here. It doesn't need to have, oh, it's kind of in the darker spot over here because, well, it's not growing. I'm not trying to get it to come out of dormancy yet. I want to wait until it has fresh medium, right? If it would reshoot now, I would still give it another medium, and that would then induce shock again. So yeah. Anyway, that's it. Let me put them all back. Alrighty, that is it. I don't really have all too much to say about it, but I really wanted to make this video to show you that, you know, plants struggling or plants dying or however you want to call it, you know, is normal. And I also experience this frequently, but I don't take it as like a, you know, I don't take it personally. And look, I have so many plants at this stage of my growing journey that I'm not mad about it. You know, I just focus my energy on the plants that are currently doing well. They're left over here for their survival. If they come back, they're allowed to go back downstairs. And that actually happened a couple of times. I had some Alocasias that I put up here. They started thriving again, and then when they looked better, they were able to go back downstairs on display. So, you know, if those guys pull their weight and they end up looking good again, they're more than welcome back downstairs and they get a center spot. But if they're either not growing at all, or they're declining, or they're completely unalive themselves, then that's on them, not on me. I gave them a chance, you know. Not all of my plants look good. I just choose to not display them when they don't look great. So that's why sometimes you might have the impression that all of my plants are just magically thriving. They're not. Let me know if you also have a rescue section and what plants are in your rescue section at the moment by leaving a comment down below. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.